In my last video, we looked at the fact that all of us are called to have influence and the importance of us going on this lifelong journey of getting to know God as our Father and understanding who He says we are as dearly loved sons and daughters, so that our leadership comes out of this place of truth and security rather than out of insecurity and our old ways of thinking. Well, in this video, I want to look at the power of authenticity when it comes to leadership. I want to look at the importance of us taking off our leadership masks, the thing that says we have to present ourselves in a certain way, and instead help us to invite people to do life with us, to take our masks off, to show people who we really are, the challenges and the difficulties we're facing, but also the dreams and the passions that we're living with and we're longing to see God do in us and through us. And if you look at Jesus, He modelled this kind of leadership. Jesus led authentically. He invited the disciples to do life with Him. They got to spend time with Him, ask Him questions. They got to know His heart. You know, they would have seen Him get angry in the temple at the moneylenders. They saw His complete and utter dependence on the Father. They saw Him weep at the tomb of Lazarus and get so frustrated with the religious leaders. Jesus invited the disciples to learn from Him and to get to know Him and do life with Him. And that's the kind of leadership we want to emulate. The deal is, if we're leading out of insecurity, we are likely to want to keep our mask firmly in place because we will believe things like, if people really knew me, they wouldn't follow me. You know, if I showed people what was really going on in my heart, it would undermine my authority. People would stop respecting me. And we might avoid telling them about the dreams and the passions that we live with because we might be afraid, well, if I do that, I'm going to appear proud. And so we dial things down and we mute things and we keep things under wraps so that we don't come across in the wrong way. But the issue with that is it really stops the fruit of leading without a mask. There is so much wonderful fruit when you lead without a mask, and I've experienced it firsthand. I remember Simon Holly, who leads the King's Arms, he's really influenced me in this. Because I remember the first time he stood up at the front of church and talked about some inner healing he'd gone through, where he'd gone through some major deliverance, and he talked about it from the front of the meeting. He's the first leader really I've ever seen do that. And it was so significant for me because I had been feeling like I needed some freedom, I needed to deal with some stuff. But because I'd never seen it modelled by anyone, I thought that was wrong, that shouldn't be an issue, I shouldn't need that. And so I just kind of squashed it down. But as soon as Simon got up and shared what he'd gone through, all of a sudden I thought, oh my gosh, I can do it too. And it gave me permission to go on my own journey of inner healing and freedom. And I've really tried to emulate Simon's example and live without a mask and lead without a mask. And I remember a few years ago now, I was speaking at TSM, our Training for Supernatural Ministry School, one evening. And all the way through the day and the lead up to the evening, I'd been really wrestling with anxiety. And I'd never really dealt with anxiety. I'd never really found it challenging, never experienced it really before, but this was really crippling. I wanted to run and hide. I didn't want to speak to people. I couldn't get my thoughts together, and I was meant to be going and speaking that evening. And I was spending time with God, and I just felt Him say to me, Wendy, I want you to go and speak, but I want you to, at the beginning of your session, be honest with everyone about how today's been, and then invite anyone who can relate to what you're saying to stand up and pray. And so that's what I did. I went to TSM and I shared what had been going on for me that day and told the students I'd been wrestling with anxiety. And then I said, listen, if you can relate to anything that I've just said and you wrestle with this too, why don't you stand with me? And I kid you not, about 2/3 of the room stood to their feet. It was amazing. It was incredible, and we got to pray for each other, we got to minister to each other, and we got to see Jesus break in and do wonderful things across the room. There is so much fruit when leaders lead without a mask. Just a couple of things to mention. I think the first thing is it creates a level playing field. I think sometimes we can put leaders on pedestals and we look at them up front, shiny and glossy, and because they've got their mask firmly in place, we just think they're completely sorted. And what that does for me as someone watching is make me think, well, there's no way I can emulate that because I know I'm a real mess and I've got all these issues, but they are perfect. And we put them on a pedestal and think there's no way we can go there. Whereas when as leaders we take our mask off and invite people into our lives and the mess and the challenges, all of a sudden people are looking on and think, oh my gosh, they're just like me. They're just the same as me. They're just learning how to follow Jesus just like I am. I can do that too. And so it creates a level playing field where we're all in this together and we're all journeying together and we all get to learn to follow Jesus together. And the second fruit is like really what I've already mentioned about this whole permission thing. You know, when I did this at TSM, it gave permission for everyone in the room to stand and to deal with the stuff in their own hearts. And that's what happens when we as leaders take our mask off and show people, this is some of the stuff I'm wrestling with. It suddenly creates permission for everyone else who's looking on to take their mask off and to say, God, I need your help. I need you to work in my heart. I need to work through this issue. I need freedom. And it enables the people we're leading to step into their own journey of freedom, where God can move and break into their hearts and bring breakthrough and help them on their own journey of understanding their identity as dearly loved sons and daughters. You can't step into freedom if you keep your mask on. And what we should long for as leaders is that people we lead can overtake us and run further than us. And in order to do that, they've got to take their mask off. And they've got to also take their mask off when it comes to the dreams and the passions in their heart. If you're not honest about that stuff, you can't step into it. And so when they see us do that as leaders, it gives them permission to go after all that God's called them to. And as a result, we see the people around us flourish and fly in God, and we see God's kingdom come all over the place because we've seen many, many people empowered to say yes to him and to do so from a place of freedom. So let me ask you, are you leading without a mask? It's so important if we want to see the people around us flourish and fly in God. Have you taken your mask off? Are you inviting people to do life with you? I tell you, the fruit when you lead like that is incredible. Next week, I want to look at the power of our words and the fact that encouragement, when we encourage the people around us, we help them to step into all that God's got for them.